Borderless Solutions panel.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Alan Tobin, and I will be moderating our Borderless panel. I'm a founder of the BitHedge early stage startup, which will provide Bitcoin volatility solutions in the coming months. But we have a great panel here, which is actually open to taking questions from the audience throughout the discussion. So if you have a question, please get the mic first, and then raise a hand with the mic, and then we'll invite your questions. So I would like to ask every panelist to introduce themselves.
Okay, well, I'm Celso. I'm the founder of BTC Jam, peer-to-peer lending website. We are operating for more than 6 months now. Yeah, that's it.
My name is Kris Henriksen. I am the founder, developer, and CEO of BIPS. And I'm here to talk about borderless solutions regarding Bitcoins.
Jeff Garzik, Bitcoin core developer.
I'm Sklar from Israel, Tel Aviv, Israel, founder of SafeBit.
Thank you. Okay, so what are the solutions? Of course, the Bitcoin being completely agnostic about the fact that humans decided to, or some people decided to split the surface of the Earth into geographic regions called countries. It's an ultimate borderless solution, but now there are individuals and businesses who use the Bitcoin system, and they inherently have certain relationships with those countries. That creates some types of problems. So what kind of problems can you think of, or have you experienced in your own activities of that kind?
Well, we have experienced a lot of problems related to having users. We have users from 85 countries right now, and it's very difficult to find a balance between, because we have like Chinese people lending money to Americans, Americans lending money to Brazilians, and we have one loan from one guy from Russia that receives money from people from China, Italy, Spain, Brazil. So everyone is in a different jurisdiction. Everyone works in his own currency, local currency. They have fluctuations against Bitcoin, and they have fluctuations against each other. So we had to develop ways to ensure that everything will occur and will be economically viable. So we are now. That's the major problem. The other problem is the jurisdiction, because when some borrower defaults, we need to go after the coins. And since this is an international problem, so we also have a kind of solution to that right now. I think we discussed it later.
Yeah, that's right. Kris?
Yeah, well, when we're talking about Bitcoins, I mean, the way to use Bitcoin globally, it depends, of course, on the internet connection. I mean, Bitcoin is very, it's required to have an internet connection or broadband to use it. And the problem is most countries doesn't really have a good infrastructure in regards to 3G, 4G, and LTE, and whatever it's called now. So what I am working on with the BIPS is a way to get people with feature phones or dump phones, whatever you would like to call them, the possibility of using Bitcoins via a GSM network. So for instance, you know about that there is a few SMS wallets where you can SMS, I want to send this person 1 Bitcoin, and it will respond that you need to provide a PIN code, you will provide a PIN code, and it is sent to that person. The problem with this is, of course, the anonymity, if I could speak. So the handler will store these SMS messages, and you probably will not want that. So a solution we are working on is to build a solution where you will receive a menu back to your phone, and our service will keep a live connection to your headset. So as to, once you hang up this call, it will erase every history you need. So, and this is based on, some of you might know it, a product called USSD, where it initializes a real-time connection to the phone and provide you with a menu, so you can just click 1 for get balance and 2 for send funds. And this is one of the things I believe is going to change the way monetization works in countries like India or Africa, where mobile broadband is scarce.
Yeah. That's a great problem to point out, because Bitcoin being a peer-to-peer network does rely heavily on having an internet connection,
It
but
does, yes.
you can provide solutions even when there is none.
We are hoping to expand it very quickly. It looks really good from my point of view. So let's see how it is accepted.
Great. Jeff?
In terms of border-laden problems, remittances immediately come to mind. There's, in the fiat world, huge barriers and friction and fees involved in cross-border transactions, whereas all of that is simply erased with Bitcoin. In the United States, it's not cross-country, but cross-state, you have various regulatory jurisdictions, and in particular Bitcoin exchanges are often faced with the problem of complying with 50 different sets of rules, and that's just in the United States, not counting the rest of the world. And so there are a lot of cross-border pain points. And the third sort of big problem that really comes to mind is with the credit card network. That's really an ancient technology in terms of technological pace. It's developed in the, what was it, the 70s or 80s, and really now it's absolutely unsuitable and insecure for online transactions, especially cross-border online transactions. So those are 3 particular pain points that stick out, I think.
Thank you.
In Israel, we have a couple of problems. We too have immigrants from India and Romania and Eastern Europe. And like other people said here, there are a lot of fees associated with transferring money. A lot of people sending money back home to their families. And those fees can get quite expensive, especially for people who are working for a minimum wage or below that, which is a lot of immigrants and work immigrants in Israel do. And also we have a problem with Arabs in Israel. They don't really have an opportunity to work in where the Israeli or Jewish people work. So that kind of creates a barrier for them to work where they can work. And with Bitcoin, I believe this barrier might come down soon, thanks to Bitcoin.
Okay, great. So let's take a look at where the problem starts for businesses. I see increasingly greater number of startups having completely distributed structure where every member of the team, co-founders, are located in different countries. And then when they oftentimes do not even need to have an office. And then at the time when they need to attract investors, the question arises where to incorporate. So that's why we start hearing some very interesting ideas about possibilities of having distributed corporations. Can you say anything? Okay.
Yeah, well, in regards to that, I mean, for instance, my experience is that in Denmark or Europe, they're pretty lenient in regards to regulations right now for Bitcoins. So what we have decided is that we will base our company in Europe. And then of course they might. I mean, the USA is the first mover on regulations as far as I see it. So I bet Europe will follow whatever USA decides, or they might just make their own rules in regards to Bitcoin. But as of now, I see Europe as the perfect place to make a startup business. So in regards to regulations and
One problem we found out this is like the Bitcoin business just generally it is global by nature. Like we don't want to be restricted by some users from some country. Like we have like loans from like 18 countries, and this is a problem because each country has a different regulation about how the loans are handled, and it's not clear to me how being incorporated in one place will solve the problem, because I have users from all over the world, so it's somehow confusing.
In the case of your business, you are likely that the UN has a treaty to which many countries are signatories, and that sort of solves partially. So maybe you could tell a little bit about that.
There is a UN treaty. It's called International Arbitration Treaty, and more than 100 countries have signed it. So you have it's called you have the figure of the international arbiter, and he can write legally binding contracts between different nationalities. And by using this contract, someone that gets loan defaulted can send the contract to a judge, and the judge will accept it because it is under that treaty. So we are using this now. This was one of the solutions we came up to use that. And I think we are the first Bitcoin enterprise using legally binding international contracts right now.
Jeff, so maybe you could say a few words about the distributed corporation and the possibility of having those kind of entities.
Yeah, I do think that just like Bitcoin itself is really not trying to reinvent the fiat world and money, but it is really a whole new thing. It's making an end run around the existing money and bank system. And in similar ways, you can do the same thing with a corporation. In 2011, I was involved in the Bitcoin Mining Alliance, which I guarantee that no one has heard of. It was essentially a unincorporated corporation involved with 12 investors. We have never met except on IRC. We all contributed Bitcoins, and we received shares in this little corporation. We used those funds to hire someone in St. Paul, Minnesota to set up a GPU mining farm. And then we received the profits from that. We purchased the hardware, that sort of thing. And we never filed an article of incorporation with any state or with any country. We never, filed any sort of documents along those lines. All of the taxes were individual responsibilities of the owners. It was truly a decentralized global corporation. You don't have to ask any bureaucrat, may I start this corporation? You just simply meet, you create a contract, you create an agreement which you all abide by, and then you execute that. And so as long as you have a basic fundamental understanding of private property and contracts, and you have the necessary economic incentives in place, you don't really need many of these border-bound corporate solutions that many people are experienced with right now. You really have to think globally from the start if you're going to have an effective organization.
But then this is a great example. I'm curious now, investors typically require, before putting their money into any business, that the business is incorporated, because that gives them legal recourse and the possibility to come after the assets of the company in case of anything happens. How did it work in your case?
Legal recourse is an interesting concept, just like to make a little bit more extreme example of homicide. You always have a recourse, but the damage has already occurred. If there is a theft or some incident, yet you might have a legal recourse or you might not, but the damage has already been done and you're just left picking up the pieces. And so it's critical, particularly in the example I just gave, to make sure that ahead of time you know and you trust the reputations of all the investors and you have done your due diligence in that direction. And so it's really more about the community, the social network that you're building. And, you know, what is a corporation but another social network, another way to, you know, for men and women to organize themselves. It's just another organizing principle.
Well, that might work for companies not registering an official company. I mean, well, that might work for some companies that know they're just operating inside the Bitcoin economy. That not necessarily might work for the rest of the companies that do need to have fiat interaction with other companies. In Israel, we have a lot of companies that are registering overseas in the United States and Cayman Islands, in London, wherever it is, wherever it's comfortable, basically, for either the investors or the founders. Usually the reasons are taxes. So people try to pay as less possible taxes as they can. And I think some countries are going to capitalize on that and just going to provide companies like Jeff Garzik just described to welcome them and just allow them to easily incorporate and provide, you know, legal and protection, yes.
And just to take the idea of distributed corporations still to another, maybe even a little bit futuristic level, perhaps some of us have seen a recent article in the Bitcoin magazine about whether corporations actually need humans to run. So perhaps we can have autonomous corporations which can use the Bitcoin system to enter into economic interactions with the rest of the world. They could have their own objective functions and
Absolutely, and that's not unrealistic at all. When people talk about, you know, robots running corporations, you probably think of Hollywood movies or something like that. But in technical terms, there's a term called narrow AI. And what that simply means is it's a robot that's a fancy macro. It's a fancy script. It has no intelligence, just business rules. The business rules say, you know, if the investors say this, then the robot does this. If the investors vote this way, the robot executes this transaction. You know, you can code many business rules into a language that could be executed in a borderless fashion by one or more of these entities running on machines around the world and in a very decentralized fashion. One of the interesting use cases for Bitcoin is that in the future, perhaps, you know, robots of this nature could hire humans to do work rather than the other way around. And so that opens a number of, you know, Hollywood scenarios, certainly, but some more realistic possibilities as well.
And I think, Jeff, you have described one of such realistic possibility in your blog, right? About hosting, or web hosting?
Yes, there is an example that was first described on the forums. It's basically a robot which always forms agreements with investors such that it will not be cheated. The investor puts forth the money, and then the robot will receive the money and perhaps say every time a file is downloaded, it'll debit a little bit of the money. But, so how does it make a profit? If that service is successful, then the robot starts slowly sending funds back to the investor until the investor is paid back. Now, there are a lot of mutations that can occur. For example, in World Wide Web testing, Facebook uses something called A/B testing to present a different version of Facebook to 20% of the users and another version of Facebook to 30% of the users. And they measure through data analytics to see which Facebook is more successful in targeted advertising or something like that. And you can employ those same techniques for a robot to have limited mutation capability, so it can not really learn like a human learns, but it can improve itself over time and make better and smarter investments. So that's definitely on the sci-fi end of things, but I do assert that it is technically possible, and a design has been posted.
Yeah, I think it would be neat to build a script like that on fuzzy logic or similar.
Oh, absolutely.
So it could learn from mistakes and whatnot. Yeah.
There is already a genetic algorithm powered trading bot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But this is this design is dumber than that. This intentionally, it's just a script. Everyone knows scripting. That's what narrow AI is. You don't have to have fuzzy logic or anything fancy. You just have a script that says, if the treasurer told me to do this, execute this action. You don't need a human to do that.
Great. And if we could switch gears from the futuristic scenarios to something which is very close to the heart of most global Bitcoin businesses, and that is risks of being exposed to Bitcoin exchange rate in different local currencies of the clients of each businesses. So if you could say.
Yeah, we have experienced the problem a lot. At the beginning of our service, we only provided Bitcoin-related bonds. And when we got the first spike, we got a lot of defaults because people wasn't able to pay because Bitcoin price went like 10 times higher. And now we are providing loans that are pegged to another currencies. So you can you use Bitcoin as a meta currency or use it to transfer value only, and the amount to pay is converted at the time of the payment, based on the exchange rate at the time. So if the Bitcoin price rises, you pay less, and the value, the value remains the same in another currency. So the borrower can choose which currency he's willing to take, like a dollar or Bitcoin or this is our first approach. Of course, there are other approaches like hedging. I think you can explain.
No, we're
yeah,
I'm the moderator, so.
Oh, okay. But yeah, we are now working to provide insurance against Bitcoin variations. So a person will pay a little extra for that, and you can account for the price fluctuations. And then since we know the probability of a price variation, you can specify that and make insurance. So you can guarantee some price in the future for Bitcoin, and then we will protect the lenders and the borrowers because the exchange rate will be fixed for the borrower, but the lender you receive the full amount.
Kris, do you face this problem in your business?
Yes, well, this is exactly the reason I developed BIPs to guarantee the rates for merchants. Say you want to buy a t-shirt or similar for $10. Make sure that you can guarantee the $10 to the merchants if people pay in Bitcoins because of the volatile nature of the market rate. So what we did is we simply placed a timer on the checkout page, and if they don't pay within 15 minutes, then the invoice will expire, and they have to go back and check out again. And yeah, hurry this time. I mean, 15 minutes should be more than enough for a Bitcoin transfer, as it is almost instant. So this is basically the principle I built BIPs on. So yeah.
Well, that was a fantastic advertisement for BitPay as well.
Most likely, yes.
But I think thinking at a higher level, Bitcoin is really it's really the first global currency. Now, some of the audience might say, no, it was gold or something like that. Now, gold is very difficult to transport across the border. It's quite obvious. You've got to hire a bunch of pack mules and transport your gold plates across the border. I could just take a flash drive or remember a password and transfer $1 million across the border just like that. So I think one of the interesting things in the context of borderless solutions is Bitcoin itself, the fundamental nature of Bitcoin is borderless. And it's just the nation states of the world that are throwing up the hurdles that are increasingly proving to be sort of imaginary hurdles that we can just work around. So once you start running a Bitcoin business, you realize that fundamentally your Bitcoin business is borderless, and you wind up having to take extra steps just to deal with sort of the artificially created nation state hurdles that you must deal with. But Bitcoin is really, it creates incentives to create borderless transactions. Fundamentally, if you're going to set up a website and accept Bitcoin, automatically everyone in the world can pay you. And it's just that simple. And so that's what I love about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin solves a lot of problems in that. For example, we have a few banks, basically the 5 major banks, blocking transactions to Mt. Gox, Bitstamp, and a few other exchanges, global exchanges, which caused some problems to local Bitcoin exchanges. And individuals who are trying to send money to buy Bitcoin from global exchanges simply deny it. Banks telling them, no, you can't send money to that bank account. And when you ask for a reason, they just tell you, you can't, that's it. But evidently people find a way to eventually buy Bitcoins in Israel, even though the banks are trying to create hurdles with no legal recourse. There is no, the central bank in Israel didn't comment on Bitcoin for now. But yet Bitcoin finds a way how to get to people. So I love what Bitcoin does.
And that's a lot of the pain points that we see with some of the other exchanges as well. It's not the central bank that's saying don't use Bitcoin. It's sort of
the commercial banks.
The commercial banks are talking to each other, and sort of the whisper network is saying.
They just decide, and you can't do anything about it. They decide that you can't transfer the money outside, and you just can't.
Yeah, that's not a law. That's just a bunch of people who made that decision. Right. So there's no real appeals process.
They choose for you who you can do business with and who you can't. And with Bitcoin, you can choose for yourself who you do business with, whether it's legal, illegal, I don't know, it's a political issue. For example, I can't work with Iranians, or most of the world cannot work with North Koreans. Now we suddenly have a choice. We're not obligated to work one way or another.
And as wonderful as it is, as practical as all the Bitcoin payments are, then most of you have mentioned that regulatory type of problems is one of the major ones. And then we know that some countries, some jurisdictions, United States notably, goes really a long way and can prosecute businesses in overseas locations if they serve US customers. And then there's an interesting question as to who should bear the cost and responsibility for complying with those regulations and laws which might even transcend boundaries. What do you think about them?
Yeah, well, in regards to the regulations, I mean, if we take the USA for example, I mean, I would love to have a money transmitter licensing in USA, but for a startup business, it's just not possible. I mean, I don't have $42 million or more to get a licensing in each state. So, yeah, I mean, if they could just relax the regulations on Bitcoin, so startup businesses could get this license and operate, and then just employ another form for safety to make sure that these startup businesses behave. So this is the way I would like it to work.
In Bitcoin, we discussed about it that we can incorporate without actually having a legal entity. And while right now it's not very common to see a corporation which is not really incorporated anywhere, I think we're going to see a lot more of these kind of businesses out there. And countries will start noticing that, because from their perspective, they're going to lose a lot of money on basically taxation. So eventually they'll have to either work with us, with the unincorporated businesses and individuals who want to operate freely financially, or they're just going to start losing a lot of money, and people will just choose to work that way because it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more, it's just easier.
Yeah, but I don't think today this is viable yet, because you have to pay employees, you have to pay the rent, you have to buy stuff.
It's perfectly viable today.
Yeah.
You have people doing it today.
Yeah, Bitcoin Magazine is working completely Bitcoin?
I think it's possible, but I don't think it's easy. Like
Not right now, but I believe it's going to be easier and easier. We're going to start building scripts of how do you incorporate a company that doesn't have a legal representation. And we can do that even just with the blockchain without any other tools right now. Investors, payments, paying salaries, stuff like that. It all can be just come into a script, people sign, agree on it, and that's it. You don't need any legal arbitrator to decide, yeah, it's okay, it's not okay. It's just all done automatically. You don't need anything else. Technically, you could do it. When it's going to come down to a practical version that people actually start using, I think it's 2-3 years from now.
And there's actually some technical solutions that help with this sort of thing too. It's a little bit too in-depth to get into right now, but if y'all will Google fidelity bonds and fidelity bonded banks, you'll find some very interesting solutions to if you have a decentralized entity and there's a risk that that decentralized entity, like has happened several times in Bitcoin's past, runs off with the bank, you know, or there's a theft or something like that. Well, you can set up bonds ahead of time, and you can set up either human or automated mediators to watch for certain conditions. And you know, if the operator runs off, then you can have already in place in the blockchain some recourse for investors or customers or whatever your scenario is. And so there's some really interesting technically assisted solutions for some of the borderless problems that we're seeing.
If we go a little bit to the future and look at stuff like NFC, you could make an automated company that sends deliveries or does some kind of business, and it tracks itself to see, for example, I ordered something online, paid with Bitcoin, and I didn't get it after a couple of weeks. And now I want to get my money back or something like that. Eventually we'll be able to track everything with NFC and stuff like that, and we could potentially see everything. Okay, shipment didn't get here, it stopped there and there. We could potentially won't need a human interaction in order to arbitrate some kind of a business problem.
Okay. Well, I don't have any more sort of questions to continue sort of structured discussion. So maybe it is a good time to open up for questions from the audience. If you don't have any more comments on your own.
I mean, corporations are a very nice thing. So maybe one problem. The major problem I see is that what about if the corporation is losing money to bankrupt? If you have no incorporation, to me, depends on the law, of course, but the shareholder, whatever it is, the associates are liable. So it's perhaps not as simple. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but that's a question I want to ask, and I have a second question in this respect. Which is typically European, of course. What about VAT?
You're asking about what about taxes, basically? How do
VAT?
Bad tax.
Bad tax, yeah.
VAT, because VAT is something that when you sell something, you have to bill it with your services. Whereas I can very well imagine, as Gavin Jeff said, when you have profits, they are distributed to the various persons, and they will pay the taxes independently. But with VAT, this is not possible.
Yeah, it depends on your business. If you're selling something to the mainstream public that's not over the internet and you know, sort of the brick and mortar store, then absolutely you're going to have business licenses, you're going to have sector specific licenses, and that sort of thing. So you know, that model certainly doesn't apply to the Tescos of the world necessarily. As to you know, what happens when things go wrong, well, as mentioned before, legal recourse is always possible. You can jurisdiction shop, but the damage is already done. Has anyone received Bitcoins back from the Bitcoinica debacle? No. There's legal recourse and it's underway and it looks like it's going to utterly fail. These things are just more relics of the past than anything.
VAT is basically a tax that is imposed on us whether we want to or not. Basically, if you choose to live in one country or another, you agree to pay the taxes that they're imposing you. And with Bitcoin, we can make a choice whether we want to pay that or not. I think most of the people in this room and everywhere, basically, they do enjoy paved roads, lit streets, and clean environment. So most companies will continue paying VAT, and most customers will continue paying VAT because that's just the way we live. But we do have a choice. So if a country suddenly abuses the power that it has, citizens could have a way to avoid paying that tax. And there were examples in history where citizens basically didn't pay taxes as a way to demonstrate their being upset against the country they lived in. And I think right now it's a good solution for us as citizens to stand up and say, listen, I don't agree with the way you run things here. Until now, we didn't have that option, and with Bitcoin, we do.
More questions?
If I can add a short comment on that, I think it's not the time to regulate Bitcoin, but it's the time to innovate the tax system.
You're here.
In the face of these events. I have a short question for Jeff. I am Jaromil, and I really like your Pico coin code base, so you know that already. And my question is, what
Can you
is...
speak up a little bit?
Yes, what is your intention with Pico coin, and what, if you like to share, what do you use it for?
The intention with Pico coin is generally to that Pico coin is, for those who don't know, it's written in the C language, the low-level C language, and it's intended more as a demonstration application for the libccoin library, which is hopefully anyone who's going to use the C language should pick up that Bitcoin library and build their applications on top of that. Eventually, it should be able to do two things. One, run a full node, and number two, work as an SPV wallet. And since it's written in C, it's really focused on the lower resource end of the scale, maybe some smartphones or some embedded devices like a router or something like that. It's really focused on the lower resource end of the scale. But if you're a programmer and you know C, contributions are welcome, patches are welcome. It's open contribution. Just go onto my GitHub.
Other questions?
My name's Miles. I'm from a university in the UK. I'm a researcher at Lancaster University. I have an interest in resource-based economics, and it was interesting to hear some of your views about the future of economics, and specifically, like, I was wondering if you see Bitcoin as a transitionary vehicle to a society that could maybe cybernate the management of all resources, not just money.
Yeah, well, the way I see Bitcoin is in addition to the monetary system. I mean, with the old system, I would like to call it, it's not really possible, like Jeff said, to send across the border without many fees. And this is a possibility you have with Bitcoin. I mean, you can send it instantly to any country in the world. And therefore, I would like to see it as an addition to the system we use now. So if those two systems can work together on a higher level, I mean, we will have a really, really good currency in Bitcoins as well.
I actually think we're about to enter an economy of abundance, going from the scarcity thing that we have right now. And I do think that Bitcoin is a way for us to get from the point that we are at now, which is we basically worship money, into entering a phase where everything is so cheap that money is basically worthless. And I think Bitcoin will contribute that because it makes business a lot less frictionless, a lot less friction, and it's just quicker and better for everybody to participate in that. So we're gonna see prices going down, things like Bitcoin.
I think that's a key economic concept too with Bitcoin is it's very, very low friction compared to just about any other currency in the world. And that really enables more of the decentralized corporations, the global websites, the global businesses that we're all trying to build. You know, if you are encumbered with so many regulations just simply to receive cash at your store or something like that, you're going to choose a solution that makes it easier for you to do your own business, and that's Bitcoin.
Yeah. And it's not just Bitcoin. Maybe Bitcoin has its own limitations right now. The version of Bitcoin that's we're all talking about. But all the altcoins, I'm talking about that as well. Basically, the idea of Bitcoin, not just the version that we're running right now.
Yeah.
So do you see this Bitcoin more as a monetary system alternative to other payment systems, or as an enabler for the digital economy? Like you could have an entire economy in the Bitcoin mining industry, or communication, content distribution, community, anonymous ads, more broader usage. And what do you see companies actually popping up in this space? More on the payment sector, or
Yeah, Bitcoin is far more than just a payment system. It's a revolution.
Yeah, I would like to add something. As the adoption grows, like today we see a mix of people using as an instrument to transfer value, but I think as the adoption grows, but today you see uses of all that kinds of measurement. Like it's not just payment or just currency, but I think people are still figuring out how to use this technology. It has many uses.
I think one of the key features that Bitcoin provides is micropayments, and we've been trying to solve the micropayments problem for at least a decade now. And Bitcoin just has this built in, it's pretty easy, combined with the other altcoins like Litecoin, Namecoin, colored coins, and Bitcoin. This is a complete solution that you get. You don't need to develop anything further. You just download an API, some kind of client, and that's it. You plug it into your system and you have micropayments. And you don't see it in any other payment out there.
I have just an additional question. So how do you create value? Or how do you ground the value that is there in some real world object? This one is grounded in computation.
Mm-hmm.
How do you ground it to some value that is finite, or maybe that's measurable? So what kind of alternative do we have to ground it? I mean, right now Bitcoin mining industry, so to say, is based on applying some functional computation in order to produce value for this market. So not only trading value, but how do you create value in this virtual economy, digital economy?
Well, we're bootstrapping an economy from scratch, so you can't just start and all of a sudden you have stores everywhere. It's fundamentally the chicken and egg problem of you need customers to have Bitcoins before merchants want to accept them, and you need vice versa. So to create value, it's 1,000 little businesses starting up and using Bitcoin in every sector of the economy, and slowly integrating every country in the world into the Bitcoin economy. But how do you create value? There's no one right answer to that. There are a million right answers to that, and I think a lot of people in this room are already tackling that problem.
Yeah, I think it's what we're all working on, right? Integrating more and more people to Bitcoin because we think it's a good idea. Revolutionary. Yeah.
And since we are running out of time now, I think that would be a good time to wrap up our discussion. Thank you very much, everybody.